There comes a moment in every person's life when the weight of delay becomes unbearable. You have read the books. You have watched others rise. You have written plans that felt like fire in one moment and dashes the next. And yet you still find yourself waking up to the same version of you, tired, hesitant, uncertain. You keep asking, where do I begin? How do I break through? What do I need to finally move? But those questions, though common, are built on a lie. A lie that you must become someone else, somewhere else, with something else before your life can change. The truth is simpler and more confronting. You start where you are, because where you are is not a mistake. Where you are is not a failure. Where you are is not the enemy. Where you are is the exact place your power has been waiting for you to return to. But most people cannot see it, because they have been trained to resent their current circumstances, to look at their life through the lens of lack. They see what they do not have, who they are not, what is missing, what went wrong. They walk through their days blind to the truth right in front of them. You are not waiting on a miracle. You are sitting inside one. And your ability to move forward will never be about what is missing. It will always come down to what you do with what you already have. That is the core philosophy of this book. You are already equipped. You simply have not yet learned how to use what you carry. Every breakthrough begins in this realization, not in getting more, in seeing differently. Because the strongest people you admire were not handed perfect timing, ideal resources, or guaranteed certainty. They were handed hardship, resistance, setbacks. But they learned how to work with it. They learned how to mine gold from gravel. And the only difference between them and you is this: they stopped waiting for the ideal conditions. You must do the same, because your calling will not wait for you to feel ready. Your future will not pause until you feel confident. The vision that is haunting you with its brilliance and beauty, it is not for someone else. It is yours. And it has always been yours. The only thing that must shift now is how you relate to where you are. This book is not about fantasy. It is about power. The kind of power that begins when you finally look around and say, I may not have everything I want, but I have enough to begin. Enough clarity. Enough breath. Enough strength. Enough fire to strike the first match. Let me tell you what others will not. Most people never start, not because they are incapable, but because they are ashamed of what their life looks like in this moment. They do not want to begin small. They do not want to begin alone. They do not want to begin uncertain. So they do not begin at all. But let me tell you the truth, I have lived. Small beginnings carry sacred momentum. And the person who builds from lack often learns how to build with unshakable integrity. Because when you know how to create with little, you become invincible when you have more. So do not despise your starting point. Do not curse your current chapter. Do not waste another breath wishing you were further along. Look down. Look around. Look within. That is your material now. And if you will trust it, if you will work with it instead of running from it, if you will stop disqualifying yourself, because your journey looks messy, you will rise. Not eventually. Not one day. Now? Because the starting point is never outside you. The starting point is you making a decision that says, I am done waiting. I am done delaying. I will build with what I have from where I am for who I am becoming. That sentence, it will become your foundation. And from that foundation, everything changes. Not because the world shifts, because you finally do. Chapter 1. The gift hidden in plain sight. It is so easy to overlook what you carry, what you survived, what you know, the people you can reach, the strength you have built. Because when life does not look like the highlight reel, you assume it has no value. When the path is unclear, you assume you are unqualified. When progress feels invisible, you assume you are behind. But here is the quiet truth that changes everything. You are standing in the middle of a gift. And the only reason you cannot see it is because you have not learned to value what you already have. We have been trained to chase what is new. New methods. New strategies. New answers. But often, the answer is already in the room. It is in your story. It is in your scars. It is in your silence. It is in the battles you thought disqualified you. Because nothing is wasted. And nothing you have lived is irrelevant. If you learn to see it differently, your entire life becomes usable. But you must stop seeing yourself as unfinished. You must stop looking at your current state through the eyes of shame. There is gold in your current season if you have the courage to mine it. Because the ones who rise are not always the ones with the most. They are the ones who stop waiting for better material. They work with what is in their hands. They take the one seed and they plant it. They take the one sentence and they write it. They take the one moment of clarity and they build momentum from it. That is how real change begins. Not with a breakthrough. With honor. Honor for what is here. Honor for what you carry. Honor for what the world overlooks but your purpose has always known. You must learn to see your life like soil. Not always beautiful. Not always clean. But rich. Rich with lessons. Rich with wisdom. Rich with potential. The world has taught you to look up and doubt. This book will teach you to look down and in. Because what is inside you right now is enough to start. You want to write a book? You have the sentences inside you already. They were carved into you during long nights and heavy days. You just have not trusted them enough to be spoken. You want to build a brand? You already carry the essence. It is in your values. Your voice. Your pain. Your convictions. You just have not seen them as the tools they really are. You want to heal your body? You already have the will to choose better, the breath to begin, the knowledge to change. You just have not believed your discipline is worth protecting. And that is what this chapter is here to teach you. Stop calling what you have not enough. It is enough. It is your material. And your job is not to compare it. Your job is to commit to it. Because when you do, it grows. When you do, it begins to multiply. When you do, the next steps find you. But they will not come while you are still insulting the present. They will not come while you are still romanticizing what you do not have. They will only come when you fully own where you are and what is in your hand. And that requires trust. Not in luck. In vision. The kind of vision that says, I see value here. I see strength here. I see the raw material of greatness, even if no one else claps for it. That is how creators are born. That is how leaders are shaped. That is how you stop waiting and start building. So let me ask you, what have you been dismissing? What gift are you sitting in right now, calling it a mess, a delay, or a problem?
As I listened to this part, I suddenly realized something I used to avoid facing. Not making a decision is still a decision. And often, that hesitation has cost me more than failure ever did. We don't always have to make the right choice from the start, but we do have to choose. Life doesn't wait for those who stand still.
Look again. Because your breakthrough is not missing. It is misnamed. Call it by its true name. Call it foundation. Call it firewood. Call it the starting point of something sacred. Because once you call it holy, you will treat it with reverence. And when you treat it with reverence, it rises to meet your expectation. That is how transformation begins. Not in a different place. Not in a different life. Right here. Right now. Start where you are. And stay long enough to let it become your momentum. Chapter 2. Use what they overlook. The world will try to convince you that you need more. More money. More time. More experience. More support. But the truth is, the most powerful transformations in history, personally and publicly, were not started with abundance. They were born out of necessity. The people who moved mountains did not wait for perfect conditions. They looked at what they had, where they were, and refused to let it stay small. And that is what you must do now. Because buried inside your not enough is a resource that the world cannot see, but your destiny feels it burning. Let the world overlook you. Let them assume you are unprepared. Let them forget your name. It does not matter. Because the ones who build legacy do not begin with applause. They begin in silence, learning how to use what everyone else has dismissed. This is the chapter where your excuses come to die. Because no matter how many times you say, I would if I just had more support, if I just had more time, if I just had better circumstances, those statements are chains. And they are not true. What you really need is not more. You need to see again. You need to lift your eyes and say, what is in front of me that I have not been using because I thought it was too small? Let me show you something. The mother who builds a business while raising 3 kids and cooking dinner, she does not have extra time. She has a standard that says, I will work with what I have, and I will do it anyway. The student who writes his first book from a shared apartment with a cracked laptop, he does not have better tools. He has a fire that says, I will write until this keyboard falls apart. The man rebuilding his life after failure, showing up every day, learning how to trust himself, he does not have a crowd. He has courage. And courage, when it moves daily, becomes power. The difference between those who rise and those who repeat is not their bank account, not their connections, not their luck. It is this some learned to multiply what others overlook. So ask yourself now, what strength are you underusing? What space are you ignoring because it does not look glamorous? What voice are you silencing because it does not sound like theirs? Because inside every so minus called limitation is a secret weapon, if you are willing to stop seeing yourself as stuck. Your hour. Your habits. Your language. Your fire. These are not crumbs. These are keys. And when you stop cursing what you lack and start cultivating what you carry, everything changes. Your confidence returns not because the conditions changed, but because your posture changed. You stand up taller. You stop apologizing. You speak with full breath. You move with conviction not because it is easy, but because you are done explaining your potential to people who never saw it in the first place. That kind of boldness only comes from one place. Ownership. You own your story. You own your time. You own your vision, even when it is still raw, fragile, incomplete. You say to the world, you may not see the value here yet. But I do. And I will build anyway. Because when you commit to working with what you have, the universe begins to stretch it. You will be surprised. Ideas arrive. Support appears. Doors open. Why? Because the world responds not to need but to movement. And movement begins with one sacred shift. You use what they overlook. You open your mouth even if it shakes. You take the walk even if you are still crying. You start the business even if the plan is imperfect. You launch the voice even if the followers are not there. Because the ones who win are not waiting. They are wielding what they already hold. So open your hands. Look again. Stop despising the dust. Because dust in the hands of someone who believes, that becomes bricks. And bricks, stacked faithfully, become kingdoms. Start now. Not someday. Here. With what you have. Use what they overlook and turn it into legacy. Chapter 3. The moment you accept it, you can elevate it. You cannot change what you do not accept. You cannot transform what you will not first face. Most people are not stuck because they lack the tools. They are stuck because they are at war with their current reality. They resent where they are. They pretend it is different. They resist what is. And resistance, no matter how noble it sounds, is a wall that keeps your breakthrough out. The greatest lie is this: if I resist it long enough, it will change. But real transformation begins not in resistance, but in radical acceptance. Not the passive kind. Not the surrender that says, this is all it'll ever be. But the kind of clear mind-aside ownership that says, this is where I am. This is what I have. This is what I've built. And this is where I begin. Because the moment you stop resisting your life, you regain your authority to shape it. You see, life is not against you. Life is responding to the way you relate to it. When you fight your current situation with shame, your power drains. When you resist your truth, you disconnect from your tools. But when you accept it not as a limit, but as a launching pad, you unlock the door to your next level. Let me say it clearly. Acceptance is not weakness. Acceptance is the highest form of mental strength. It takes courage to say, I am not where I thought I'd be. It takes strength to say, I wish I had done this differently. It takes vision to say, even though I feel behind, I still choose to move forward. Because once you accept, you can begin to elevate. You can pick up the broken pieces and say, let's build. You can look at the debt, the delay, the disappointment and say, this will not define me. You can finally stop leaking energy into fantasy and start focusing your fire on reality. I remember a man who carried deep shame for the time he had lost. 10 years, he said. 10 years of not starting, not choosing, not believing. It ate him up. But one day, he stopped the story. He looked in the mirror and said, I can keep hating my past. Or I can build the kind of future that makes it irrelevant. He started that day. 1 hour. 1 breath. 1 bold refusal to resist anymore. And that hour became his altar. He built discipline. He built systems. He built courage. Not because he had more time. Because he had finally accepted the moment as sacred. That is what you must do now. Stop waiting for your life to match your preference. Meet it with presence. Say, this is the house I will build from. And then honor it. Even if it is small. Even if it is messy. Even if it is not where you thought you would be. Because once you accept where you are, you stop hiding. And when you stop hiding, you start moving. That movement builds momentum. And momentum rebuilds identity. And when your identity begins to shift, your entire future opens. But it starts here. It starts with looking your life in the eye and saying, I accept this. I honor this. I will not waste another minute resisting this. Because what you accept, you can elevate. And what you elevate, you will eventually outgrow. That is the rhythm of transformation. Face it. Own it. Build from it. Rise above it. Now breathe. Look at your life without filters. Say, this is where I begin. And then begin. Without apology. Without delay. Without waiting for a better version of your story. Because the most powerful version, it is the one you choose to write from where you are. Chapter 4. Stop waiting to feel ready, start moving because it is time. If you keep waiting to feel ready, you will wait forever. Read that again. Let it sink into your bones. Because readiness is not a feeling, it is a decision. And the people who rise are not the ones who wait for perfect certainty. They are the ones who decide that movement matters more than mood. The idea that you must feel ready before you start is one of the greatest illusions keeping you from your next level. You think you need more clarity, but what you really need is courage. You think you need more planning, but what you really need is presence. You think you need the perfect day, but what you really need is the next breath taken with intention, taken with decision, taken without apology. Because nothing will change until you change how you move. The sacred hour, the first step, the call, the shift, it will never feel convenient. It will never feel like you are fully prepared. It will never arrive wrapped in comfort. That is not how change introduces itself. Change shows up as friction. It shows up as resistance. It shows up as a test to see whether you will lead your emotions or continue to obey them. The mind that says, I am not ready, is a mind still addicted to safety. But your future is not hiding inside safety. Your future lives inside responsibility. The kind of responsibility that says, even if I do not feel like it, I move anyway. That is where power lies. Not in waiting. In moving. I know you have been hurt. I know you have started before and stopped. I know you have planned before and watched it fall apart. But that does not mean you are not ready. It means you have been trained by delay. It means you have built a habit of hesitation. And the only way to break that habit is with a new pattern. Not a new mindset yet. Not a new belief yet. Just a new behavior. One that says I begin where I am. I act because I must. I do not ask my feelings for permission anymore. That one shift, when repeated daily, rewrites your identity. Because the brain does not know the difference between fear and danger. It only knows what you rehearse. And if you rehearse movement, even when you are afraid, you retrain your nervous system to associate action with safety. That is the secret. It is not about pretending the fear is gone. It is about moving, anyway. Start the video even if your voice shakes. Write the chapter even if it feels clumsy. Make the ask even if they say no. Share your truth even if no one claps. The first version does not need to be perfect. It just needs to be done. Done with presence. Done with power. Done because you no longer tie your worth to the outcome. You move now because movement is your medicine. You move now because hesitation has cost you too much. You move now because the only thing standing between where you are and where you are meant to be is the next step you have not taken yet. And once you take it, your body begins to trust you again. Your spirit begins to speak louder. Your momentum returns not as adrenaline, but as alignment. And alignment is what allows you to sustain what you build. So stop waiting to feel ready. You are not supposed to feel ready. You are supposed to act like it anyway. Because the ones who win are not the most confident. They are the most consistent. And consistency is built not on how you feel. It is built on what you decide. So decide. Decide that today your movement matters more than your mood. Decide that today your hour belongs to your future, not your fear. Decide that today you are no longer waiting for an invitation to begin. You are the invitation. You are the movement. You are the readiness. You are the moment you have been hoping would finally arrive. Chapter 5. Turn small steps into sacred ground. Success is not a leap. It is a series of small, often invisible, rarely celebrated steps taken with unwavering faith. The world will never reward you for the steps you take in silence. But life changes for the one who walks anyway. You have been conditioned to think in big moves, to wait for the breakthrough, to celebrate the massive progress, the highlight reel moment, the public affirmation. But what if I told you that the most important steps you will ever take are the ones you take when no one sees? The ones you take when your hands are shaking, your voice is quiet, your heart still questions, but you move anyway. Because movement is not always loud. Sometimes it is a whisper. Sometimes it is a breath. Sometimes it is choosing to get out of bed and say, today, I show up for me. That is the true discipline. That is the sacred path. The willingness to take one step and not dismiss it. Because here is the secret: your next level is not waiting at the finish line. It is hidden in the small step you are about to talk yourself out of. That first call. That first sentence. That first walk. That first are guarded like a vow. And when you begin to treat those steps as holy, everything changes. You no longer underestimate what you carry. You no longer despise the quiet beginning. You no longer wait for the world to validate your direction. You walk because you know, not because you feel. You move because it is required, not because it is easy. You build because your future is already watching. And your future does not care how big the first step is. It cares only that you start. You do not have to build the empire today. But you do have to plant the brick. You do not have to run the marathon today. But you do have to put on the shoes. You do not have to heal everything today. But you do have to choose not to numb. And when you do that one decision at a time, you create a rhythm. And rhythm becomes identity. It tells your body, this is who we are now. We show up. It tells your fear, you no longer lead. It tells your future, I am coming, not fast, but faithful. I have seen people transform not by taking massive action, but by finally respecting small steps done consistently. The woman who sat for 10 minutes a day writing, even when her kids screamed. The man who chose to walk 30 minutes every night instead of numbing out on his phone. The artist who stopped hiding and shared one sketch every morning. They did not wait for readiness. They created sacred patterns. And those patterns became their power. That is what you must do now. Stop looking for something huge. Stop saying, when I have more time. Stop postponing your life for the illusion of better conditions. Pick one step. Take it daily. Defend it. Honor it. Celebrate it even if no one else does. Because that step, that is your altar. That is your training. That is the seed. And no one sees the roots growing, but one day they will not be able to ignore the fruit.
Some choices seem small at first, yet they lead us down paths we never expected. I still remember turning down a partnership offer simply because of a gut feeling. Back then, I thought I was being reckless. But now I know, real safety comes from trusting your intuition, not following the crowd. This book captures that truth perfectly.
So walk. Walk softly if you must. Walk slowly if you must. But walk with intention. And speak this over your life. I do not rush the path. I walk it daily. I do not chase noise. I follow my rhythm. I do not underestimate small steps. I turn them into sacred ground. And that ground, it will carry you further than motivation ever could. That ground, it will hold you when everything else shakes. That ground, it is not someday. It is today. It is right here. Start where you are and walk like it is already holy. Chapter 6. What you repeat, you become. Every day, whether you are conscious of it or not, you are practicing something. You are rehearsing a mindset. You are reinforcing a belief. You are voting for a version of yourself through your habits, your choices, your reactions. And over time, those repetitions form your identity. Not your intentions. Your repetitions. You become what you rehearse. Not what you hope. Not what you imagine. What you repeat. And that is why your power is never found in potential. It is found in pattern. Because your potential means nothing if your patterns contradict it. You say you want clarity, but do you keep rehearsing confusion? You say you want discipline, but do you keep repeating escape? You say you want confidence, but do you keep practicing self-minus doubt? The life you are living now, down to your energy, your confidence, your results, is a reflection of what you have rehearsed the most. And that is good news. Because it means you are not stuck. You are just trained. And anything trained can be retrained. Let me ask you something bold. What are you rehearsing right now that no longer belongs in your future? What patterns are you still speaking like truth? What rhythms are you still living as if they are law? What excuses have you dressed up as logic? You must be brutally honest. Because what you do not confront will quietly continue. And what you continue to repeat will eventually become who you believe you are. But you are not your past repetitions. You are your next one. You are one pattern away from a new path. One sacred hour away from a new rhythm. One decision to say, I no longer repeat the person I was, I now practice the person I am choosing to become. That shift is not mental. It is embodied. You do not think your way into it. You train your way into it. And the training begins with what you do with your sacred hour. Not how much you do, but how intentionally you do it. Do you show up scattered, half minus present, half minus believing? Or do you show up like someone who understands that repetition is remembrance? Because every time you show up, you are reminding yourself of your power. You are rebuilding the foundation that delay once eroded. You are replacing the voice of fear with the evidence of faithfulness. And over time, that evidence becomes impossible to ignore. Not just by others. By you. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to feel safe in your own momentum. You begin to move with the kind of clarity that says, I no longer beg for change. I practice it. So here is your command. Choose the repetition. Do not wait for it to feel right. Do not wait for it to be easy. Do not wait for external reward. Do it because it is who you are now. Every morning I rehearse presence. Every hour I rehearse discipline. Every time you feel the urge to delay, I rehearse movement. Every time fear whispers, I rehearse my truth louder. Because repetition is not just about routine. Repetition is how identity is etched into your nervous system. And once identity is rewritten, everything else aligns. Decisions become cleaner. Boundaries become clearer. Your life begins to feel like it belongs to you again. But it starts here. With one practice. 1 hour. One refusal to rehearse the version of you that you are now ready to outgrow. Let it die. Let it go. And begin the rehearsal of your becoming. Chapter 7. What you already have is waiting to be activated. It is not about adding. It is about activating. You have been taught to believe that you are missing something. That if you could just acquire one more tool, one more course, one more mentor, one more breakthrough, then you could begin. But you do not need to be filled. You need to be ignited. Because everything you need is already inside you. The resilience, the insight, the courage, the clarity, the authority. It is not missing. It is dormant, waiting for the moment you stop asking for permission to unleash it. You were not created with lack. You were created with layers, and every layer holds strength that gets revealed when pressure is applied. So, if you feel stretched right now, it is not a sign of weakness. It is a signal that activation is near. Because pressure activates potential. And potential becomes power only when you refuse to bury it in excuses. The most powerful people are not always the ones with the most resources. They are the ones who refuse to let what they have go unused. You have wisdom that has been silenced. You have skills that have been hidden. You have instincts that have been overridden by fear. But now, right now, is the moment you choose to activate what you carry. This does not require noise. This does not require applause. This requires presence. This requires posture. This requires a quiet but firm yes. I will use what I have. I will trust what I feel. I will speak what I know. I will move from what I already own. Because when you move from what you carry, life responds. Doors do not open for the desperate. They open for the decided. And decision activates what delay had numbed. Let me ask you. When was the last time you looked at your own life and said, "This is enough to start with"? When was the last time you took inventory of your story, not as a trauma log, but as a toolbox? Your story did not happen to hurt you. It happened to equip you. You just have not seen it that way yet. But when you do, everything changes. You stop chasing. You start channeling. You stop shrinking. You start stewarding. You stop seeking validation. You start embodying value. That is the shift of a person who understands activation. They no longer wait to be chosen. They understand they were sent. You were sent with your voice. You were sent with your truth. You were sent with your vision. But none of it matters if you keep it buried under the lie that you are not ready. You are ready. Because readiness is not about comfort. It is about commitment. And your sacred hour is not just for building. It is for activating. Every day you return to it, you return to the truth. Nothing is missing. I simply refuse to let what I have go to waste. So speak from it. Write from it. Move from it. And most importantly, trust it. Even if no one else sees it yet. Even if the world is silent. Because the world responds not to need. The world responds to alignment. And when you activate what is already within you, You no longer need to prove anything. You simply show up as evidence. Chapter 8. The excuse is always louder before the breakthrough. Right before the shift, when the moment is inches from unfolding, when the clarity is close, when the next version of you is about to emerge, something strange happens. The noise gets louder. The fear sharpens. The distractions multiply. The doubt sounds more reasonable than ever. This is not coincidence. This is the final push of your old identity, doing everything it can to keep you the same. Because comfort does not release its grip quietly. It screams. It argues. It pretends to protect you. And its favorite weapon? Excuses. Excuses sound like logic. They sound like fairness. They sound like safety. But they are lies dressed in loyalty. Loyalty to your past. Loyalty to the version of you that made survival your identity. Loyalty to the voice that says, not now. Not you. Not this way. But what if I told you that every excuse you are hearing right now is not the truth but a signal that you are close to the edge of something holy? Because the louder the excuse, the closer you are to the threshold. And the threshold is where your old life ends, and your true life begins. But only if you cross it. Only if you override the noise. Only if you say, I hear the fear. I hear the fatigue. I hear the arguments and I move anyway. Because here is the truth no one wants to say. You do not need a better plan. You do not need more energy. You do not need another sign. You need to stop obeying your excuses. You need to wake up and say, I choose discipline over dialogue with my fear. Because every day, the excuse will ask for your attention. And every day you must choose action instead. Not because you feel ready, but because you no longer allow your feelings to run your future. I have watched people sit on the edge of breakthrough for years, not because they lack talent, but because they believe their excuse is more than their vision. They said, I do not have the time. I do not have the support. I do not know where to start. But what they really meant was, I am afraid to begin without a guarantee. And that fear, if not faced, becomes a cycle. A loop. A script that plays over and over until you believe it is your truth. But it is not your truth. It is a test. And the test is this: will you act in defiance of the excuse? Will you guard your hour? Will you show up to your work? Will you move without applause? Will you speak even if your voice shakes? Because the excuse will never die on its own. You must starve it. You must deprive it of obedience. You must decide that no matter how loud it gets, your future is louder. That is what changes lives, not talent. Not luck. Obedience to action in the face of excuse. So here is your practice now. When the excuse rises, and it will pause and say, this is a sign I am close. This is the voice of my old identity gasping for control. This is not my truth. My truth is in motion. And then move. Even if it is small. Even if it is awkward. Even if it is uncelebrated. Because every step you take in resistance to your excuses rewires your identity. And soon you stop identifying with the one who delays. You become the one who decides. And the one who decides? That person becomes undeniable. Because excuses only control those who give them power. But you? You are no longer powered by fear. You are fueled by decision. And decision, when made daily, becomes destiny. So let the excuse rise. Let it scream. Let it try. But let your actions be louder. Let your sacred hour speak for you. Because the person who refuses to obey their excuses, that person becomes unstoppable. Not overnight, but forever. Chapter 9. The hour you guard is the life you build. It does not look like much at first. 60 minutes. One block of time. 1 hour carved out of a busy day, wrapped in ordinary. But that hour, the one you keep returning to, is not just part of your schedule. It is the foundation of your becoming. Because the hour you guard with reverence becomes the life you build without apology. Most people treat their most sacred hour like a leftover. They fit it in if the day allows. They give it up when someone else needs something. They treat it like it is flexible. But here is what no one tells them: every dream requires sacred ground. And sacred ground must be protected. Because what you do in that 1 hour creates the rhythm that rewrites your entire identity. You say you want to be consistent. Then protect the hour. You say you want to change your mindset. Then guard the hour. You say you want clarity. Then clear the space around the hour until it breathes truth into your bones. That 1 hour repeated, respected, and made non-minus negotiable has more transformational power than all the noisy hustle you could ever manufacture. Because it is not about how much you do. It is about what that hour represents. That hour is a declaration: I am worth my own time. It is the line in the sand between who you were and who you are becoming. It is the altar where discipline is formed, fear is burned, and clarity is reborn daily. But that hour will always be under attack. Not because people want to harm you, but because they do not understand the cost of interruption. They do not know what it took to carve this time out. They do not see the war you fought in your mind just to sit down and stay present. So you must become ruthless in your protection of it. You must stop explaining it. Stop negotiating it. Stop letting emergencies that are not yours override it. Because if you can protect the hour, you can protect the vision. And if you protect the vision, it will multiply. The truth is, most people do not lack energy. They lack boundaries. And the first boundary you must draw is around your sacred time. You do not give it away to distraction. You do not trade it for validation. You do not surrender it to the loudest voice in the room. You honor it. You step into it like it is a throne room. You sit down not just to work, but to remember. Because that hour is where your future meets your present and says, "Show me you are serious." Not someday. Today. This is why your next book is written. This is where your body begins to heal. This is where the business is rebuilt. This is where the old narrative is deleted word by word. But only if you protect it. Only if you walk into that hour like it belongs to your legacy. Let the world schedule chaos. Let them chase and scroll and delay. You lead. You choose presence. You choose stillness when needed. You choose fire when called. You choose the same sacred rhythm over and over until it becomes your nature. And when others ask, "How did you change?" you will say, "I stopped negotiating with the hour. I made it holy. And it turned me into someone I trust again." Because trust is not given. Trust is trained. And there is no better place to train trust than in the hour you guard, the hour you defend, the hour that builds a life no one else could imagine, but you saw it all along. Chapter 10. Build before you are seen. It is tempting to wait. To wait until you are recognized. To wait until you are validated. To wait until your work is praised, your voice is amplified, your effort is acknowledged. But if you wait to be seen before you build, you will never build what truly matters. Because the deepest, strongest, most soul-minus aligned work is not born from the spotlight. It is born in the shadows. This chapter is for the season of silence. The season when no one is clapping. The season when the metrics do not move, when your inbox stays quiet, when your work feels invisible. It is in this silence that most people quit. Not because they lack the vision, but because they believe the lie that the vision is only real when others applaud it. But your sacred work, your true work, was never meant to begin in applause. It begins in obedience. It begins when you show up for your hour, not because the world is watching, but because you are watching. You know what happens when you build before you are seen. You become rooted. And roots matter more than visibility. Because roots are what keep you stable when the storms come. When criticism arrives. When pressure intensifies. When the spotlight finally finds you and demands that you stand strong without shaking. And only the ones who have built in the silence are strong enough to stand without breaking. Let me tell you something holy. What you build and seem becomes the most unshakable part of you. The rhythm you establish when no one's looking. That becomes your ritual. The standards you enforce when no one is checking. That becomes your integrity. The trust you develop with yourself in the quiet. That becomes your confidence. So build. Build the book. Build the body. Build the mindset. Build the habit. Build the foundation that no one claps for. Because the reward of the sacred hour is not recognition. The reward is alignment. And alignment will carry you further than any audience ever could. I once worked with a man who had been building in silence for 10 years. No following. No fanfare. Just consistency. One day, a single door opened. Everything he had built behind the scenes suddenly became visible. And people called him an overnight success, but it was never overnight. It was private mastery turned public evidence. That is what you are doing now. You are mastering in private. And it may feel slow. It may feel lonely. But it is working. Because this is the season where you do not need to be seen, you need to be solid. And you cannot be solid if your foundation is applause. You become solid when your foundation is truth. And truth is found in the quiet. In the repetition. In the refusal to quit just because no one noticed. So stop looking for proof in the form of feedback. Stop asking your work to pay you in validation before it has time to grow you in discipline. And do not you dare stop building just because it feels invisible. The greatest structures ever built started below ground. So start. Show up. Stay. Build. Let your silence be sacred, not sad. Let it be a sanctuary for your next level. Because the longer you stay faithful to what no one sees, the stronger you become when everyone finally does. And when they do, you will not flinch. Because you were already built. You were already ready. You built before you were seen. Chapter 11. Who you become in the waiting shapes what you do with the arrival. The wait is never wasted unless you waste it. Everyone wants to arrive. Everyone wants the breakthrough, the moment, the open door, the recognition. But what most people miss is that arrival without preparation becomes sabotage. And preparation happens in the waiting. It is not a pause. It is not an interruption. The wait is where you are made. Because the question is not will the opportunity come? The question is who will you be when it does? You see, we often ask life to hurry. We beg for acceleration. But what good is a platform if your character cannot carry it? What good is momentum if your mind is still ruled by fear? What good is exposure if your identity is still being negotiated? That is why this sacred hour is not just about output. It is about becoming someone who is ready to hold what they used to only hope for. Let me tell you something real. If the door opened today, would you be ready? Would your habits be strong enough? Would your values be clear enough? Would your vision be focused enough? Would your discipline be deep enough to carry the weight of what you've been asking for? Because if the answer is not yet, then you are not being punished, you are being prepared. And that preparation is sacred. In the waiting, your focus sharpens. In the waiting, your standards solidify. In the waiting, your excuses get burned away. In the waiting, you learn to walk without applause, and that is the kind of walk that lasts. This is what separates those who rise quickly and crash from those who rise and remain. They used the waiting as a forge, not a prison. They built when no one watched. They wrote when no one read. They practiced when no one clapped. They became trustworthy with the hour before they ever asked to be trusted with the platform. And when the moment came, they did not flinch. They did not fold. They did not apologize for their readiness. They stepped in with reverence, not entitlement. That is the kind of readiness you must build now. Do not waste this season wishing it away. Do not resent the pace. Do not confuse preparation with delay. Say to yourself, this hour I keep showing up for is not about getting ahead. It is about becoming someone who cannot be shaken when I arrive. Because arrival without identity is dangerous. It makes you vulnerable to praise. It makes you reactive to pressure. It makes you forget what matters. But when your identity has been forged in consistency, in private work, in the daily act of showing up, you become unshakable. So do not ask to skip the wait. Ask to become someone who cannot be broken by success. That kind of person is not built through rush. They are built through rhythm. This rhythm. This hour. This moment where you choose, again, to walk forward not because the finish line is close, but because the person you are becoming deserves your faithfulness right now. That is the kind of faith that builds legacy. Not faith that shows up when it is easy. Faith that shows up when nothing looks like it is working yet. Because even in the waiting, you are working. Even in the silence, you are seen. Even in the repetition, you are being made ready. The moment will come. The door will open. The opportunity will call. And when it does, you will smile not because you are surprised, but because you know you already became the person who could carry it. Chapter 12. There is nothing more dangerous than a made-up mind. You have done enough hoping. You have done enough circling. You have done enough waiting for a better mood, a more convenient day, a clearer signal from the universe. What comes next does not belong to the one who is halfway in. It belongs to the one who is fully decided. Because there is nothing more dangerous, nothing more unstoppable than a made-up mind. Everything changes when the decision is final. Not loud. Not impulsive. Final. Final like a closed door. Final like a bridge burned behind you. Final like there is no version of you returning to the old pattern, no matter how tempting it gets. The made-up mind is not about emotion. It is about alignment. It is the moment when every cell in your body agrees, this is who I am now. I no longer identify with a person who doubts, delays, or diminishes their voice. You want to change your life. Decide. Decide that your hour is sacred. Decide that your voice is valid. Decide that your next level is not optional, it is inevitable. Because when you truly decide, everything around you begins to reconfigure.
It's fascinating to reflect on life as a series of decisions. Every time we choose to stay, leave, speak, or remain silent, we carve a mark into the story we're living. This chapter made me think deeply about the responsibility I hold for my own choices, and the quiet kind of freedom that comes with owning them.
The world does not respond to maybe. It does not shift for hesitation. It bends for the person who has stopped negotiating their truth. But most people never reach that place. They play in the shallow waters of interest. They say they want it, but they keep options open. They say they are ready, but they are still available to the version of themselves that flinches. That version must be buried now. Because you have reached the chapter where your decision becomes your power. Not your plan. Not your potential. Your decision. And that decision must be made daily. Every day, the world will offer you reasons to delay. Every day, your old self will send you invitations back into comfort. But the one with a made-up mind does not entertain comfort that costs their calling. They rise. They return to the hour. They lead their mind before the world tries to. And in that rhythm they begin to carry a different kind of gravity. People feel it. Rooms shift. Not because they say much, but because they are decided. And when you are decided, you no longer wait for approval. You approve yourself. You no longer chase confidence. You move with clarity. You no longer waste energy debating your direction. You build like it is already done. Let me remind you of something sacred. The made-up mind is not arrogant. It is anchored. It is not loud. It is unbothered. It does not explain itself. It embodies. And it is born the moment you stop leaving the back door open for doubt. So this is your moment. To say, I no longer entertain confusion about who I am. I no longer wait for permission to begin. I no longer pause my potential for the comfort of others. I am done sampling discipline. I am here to master it. That is the made-up mind. And it will make your future undeniable. Not because it is fast. Because it is final. And when the mind is final, the body follows. The schedule follows. The decisions follow. And eventually the world follows. So decide. Not someday. No. Because from this point forward, there is no more wondering. There is only walking. Make it your new normal. Before you return to your routines, before you open your inbox, before the noise reclaims your attention, pause. Stand still in this place you have built. Look around at what you now know, feel, and believe. This is not just a book you have read. This is a standard you have raised. You are not the same. You are not trying to become the person who changes. You are the person who has decided. And decision changes everything. But this part of the journey is where many turn back. Not because they are weak, but because they never reset their identity. They treat their progress like a high, something that fades. They treat their habits like a phase, something to revisit later. They treat their transformation like an achievement, something to celebrate, not something to live from. But not you. Because this is where you install the new foundation. Not motivation. Not hype. Standard. Say it aloud. This is who I am now. Not based on feelings. Not based on moods. Not based on the permission of others. Based on embodiment. Based on what I've repeated, protected, and refused to abandon. This is your reset. This is the moment you stop waiting to feel different and start walking like you already are. You do not return to the old pattern. You do not reopen the door you closed. You do not ask, "Can I keep this up?" You say, "This is what I keep." Your sacred hour? Non-minus negotiable. Your vision? Non-minus transferable. Your discipline? Non-minus optional. You no longer flirt with confusion. You no longer entertain low standards. You no longer apologize for your clarity. This is your normal now. Not rush rhythm. Not noise presence. Not perfection alignment. You no longer seek consistency. You are consistency. You no longer chase structure. You are structure. You no longer need external validation. You move from internal authority. And if you feel the old self whispering, you always fall back. You answer it boldly. That version of me no longer gets a voice. Because you have built something inside yourself that can no longer be negotiated. And that something is a new standard of being. One that does not get paused just because the calendar changes. One that does not disappear when life gets loud. One that does not dilute just because others do not understand. Your reset is not about remembering more information. It is about refusing to forget who you are now. You are the person who shows up. You are the person who leads their own mind. You are the person who protects their power. You are the person who does not just dream, they do. From here forward, life does not feel different because the world changed. It feels different because you did. You created a new rhythm. You trained your nervous system. You built trust with yourself. And trust, once built, becomes your deepest form of self-respect. So from this moment, you no longer try to stay on track. You are the track. You no longer look for motivation. You move like someone who remembers their vow. Because that is what this was all about. Not changing something, but becoming someone. Start where you are, stay until it becomes power. This is the part where you choose not just what you will do, but who you will be from this moment forward. This is not the conclusion of a journey. This is the confirmation of a new identity. No more collecting knowledge you do not live. No more rehearsing doubt that delays your decisions. No more waiting to feel ready to become what you already are. This is where the transformation becomes permanent. Because the power you were chasing, it was never far away. It was buried in your now. In your story. In your struggle. In your sacred hour. In the breath you are taking right now. The world may try to pull you back into old patterns. It may tempt you with distraction, with noise, with the illusion of ease. But you are no longer confused. You know what this moment requires. It requires ownership. You own your time. You own your standard. You own your rhythm. You own your power, not because someone handed it to you, but because you showed up when it felt like nothing was changing. You showed up when your hands were shaking. You showed up when the page was blank. You showed up when no one clapped. You showed up when the old voice begged you to wait just one more day. But you did not wait. You walked. And walking day after day made you solid. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just rooted. So now, you move from that place. You move from clarity. You move from consistency. You move from the quiet confidence that says, I no longer need to chase. I am already on assignment. I no longer need to rush. I am already aligned. I no longer need to explain. My life will speak for me. Because from this point forward, the world will feel it. Your energy, your presence, your power. They will ask what changed. They will ask when it happened. They will ask what strategy you used. And your answer will be so simple it will confuse them. I started where I was, and I stayed. That is the final call. Not to rise quickly, but to remain faithfully. To show up every day with the same reverence for the hour, the moment, the work. To stop waiting for breakthrough and start walking like you already are the breakthrough. To carry this mindset into your meetings, your mornings, your movement, your message. To speak from what you now embody. Because the journey you just completed is not a chapter. It is a contract. A vow that says, I will not go back. I will not shrink. I will not forget what I have become. And when the world gets loud, you return to the hour. When doubt gets strong, you return to the rhythm. When fatigue creeps in, you return to the standard. Because that is how you protect transformation. Not with hype, with habit. This is your life now. And it began the moment you stopped saying, I am not ready, and started saying, I have enough. I am enough. And I begin here, now, with what I have. Start where you are, and never stop becoming.
If you're still here listening, then like me, you're probably done with living passively. Look back at your last 3 decisions. Did they move you forward or hold you back? No one can answer that for you. But after these 90 minutes, I believe you'll start listening to the voice within, the one that's been waiting for you all along.